Imagine a world where your boss is giving you a larger and larger workflow to the point that you're not getting your tasks done, your time is dwindling away, and you're even suffering from burnout. This might be a reality for some of you, and the thought of going to your manager and saying no, stop fills you with dread. Hi everyone, my name is Sebastian and I'm going to go through the tips and tricks that I like to use when it comes to saying no and pushing back on workflow from my boss or from my manager. It can be a very daunting task, but don't worry, we're going to go through the steps today in this video to exactly what you should do. Let's get started. Firstly, the benefits of saying no. Saying no saves you time. It might be quite weird to say, but actually saying no saves you a lot of time. While you're getting pushed on bigger projects and given more tasks, saying no will save you time because it will free you up to do the stuff that you actually want to do. It can be difficult to say no, but it's a key important thing that we've got to think about, because if we don't prioritise ourselves, no one else is going to prioritise ourselves for us. So it's really important that we get good at saying no to our managers and our bosses, because it frees us up to work on more important tasks rather than just doing whatever jobs that they ask us to do. Saying no teaches us to get out of our comfort zone. Saying no is a little bit like a cold shower. Nobody likes to do it and it's very uncomfortable, but actually if we put ourselves out with our comfort zone, we get more courage and confidence to tackle bigger obstacles when they come at us. So it's really important that we get in the good habits of saying no to our bosses and our managers. Honestly, it will save you a lot of pain in the other aspects of your life. Saying no teaches you how to be assertive. People love others who speak their mind, who are vocal, who can describe their desires and passions. You don't want to be one of those wallflowers that kind of sits on the fence and says, I don't know, or I don't mind, you choose. So saying no is a really good opportunity to practice being assertive. Saying no isn't as bad as we think. We build it up in our heads that saying no, we're going to make the other person feel like they hate us, or that they might not like us, or that we're going to make them feel upset for whatever reason. Okay, we might upset the overly sensitive people that do exist out there. However, rejection's part of life. We've all been there, even the best of us. So practice saying no and you'll find that actually it's not as hard or as bad as it ever seems like it will be in our minds. Now let's actually get into the process of saying no to our bosses. Number 1, setting boundaries. Another way of saying setting boundaries that I like to use is managing expectations. For example, if you constantly say yes to tasks that are given to you, you say yes, and then eventually you have this outburst and say no, you've not matched up the expectations. They're expecting you to say yes. So when you say no in that circumstance, you actually look like the difficult person. So the earlier that we can set out those expectations, that we have boundaries, the easier it is to enforce those boundaries down the line. Here are some examples of some boundaries that you might want to look at setting with your boss. Number 1, taking on tasks that you're not qualified on doing. 2, doing tasks out with your scheduled hours. 3, doing tasks that affect your health or your mental well-being. 4, not taking regular annual leave. And 5, working through your lunch hour and not taking an actual lunch. So now that we know this, how do we actually go about setting boundaries? Firstly, assess what boundaries are important to you. Really think about your values and what is a priority. It's really important that you're clear on the boundaries that you're looking to set, because if you don't know that, then you're not really going to know what happens when someone crosses them. Let's take the example of working out with your scheduled working hours. If this is something that's really important for you, you can be clear about it, so when someone asks you something out with those scheduled hours, you can put up those barriers and push back and say no. Communicate directly. It's important to be upfront and honest with your manager or with your boss when it comes to communicating the boundaries. It's important that you manage those expectations as early as possible. Be consistent. It's important once you've decided what your boundaries are and that you've communicated them to your boss, that you remain consistent with those boundaries. For example, if you do not want to work out with your scheduled hours, but sometimes you say yes to work, sometimes you say no to work, this inconsistency is going to send mixed signals to your boss and ultimately destroy those expectations that you've just managed. Ultimately, if you say yes, then no, then yes, then no, and then ultimately kind of have a blowout at your manager, you're going to look like the difficult person. So be consistent. Setting boundaries from the beginning is a really good method when it comes to saying no to your manager. However, let's look at a few other techniques. Ask open-ended questions. When your boss or manager asks you to do something, respond to them with an open-ended question. Now, an open-ended question is a question which starts with how, what, or why. Here's a few examples. How should I prioritize this? How does this task compare to this other task in terms of urgency? What level of attention is required? What is the running schedule for this task? By asking an open-ended question, you're actually getting your boss to engage their brain and actually think about the response. So if you respond to them by saying, how would you like me to prioritize this? They can actually look at your workflow and go, actually, you've got quite a lot on, I will give this to your other colleague, rather than just dropping tasks on you. However, if you would like to get a little bit more information on communication and open-ended questions, I actually have a weekly newsletter called Chatterbox. The link for this will be in the description below. Please join it, it's completely free, and you get so much value every week. Delegate. Now, you might not be in a position to delegate workflow that is passed from your boss onto your colleagues. However, you can word it in a way where you're trying to be helpful, trying to be supportive, whilst at the same time freeing yourself up to complete tasks that are important to you. This is a technique that I like to call push, pull, pivot. Pivot! Push is when we push our manager away, declining the work that they've given us. Pull is then we pull them back in by appearing to be helpful and supportive. And pivot is when we pivot their attention and their request onto a department or colleague which is more suitable or in a better position to support. Let's look at an example of each. Push. Unfortunately, I'm working on a project which does require a lot of my attention as there's an upcoming deadline. See, there you are pushing the request away, but you're still remaining polite and professional. Pull. However, I know you're looking for some help, so what I can suggest is, and as you can see there, we're pulling them back in, saying that we're trying to be helpful, we're trying to be supportive. I think the key thing throughout this is to remain genuine and authentic. You want to help them. Pivot. Have you tried speaking to the marketing department? This is actually their area of expertise, and I am confident that they can help. You see, you've pivoted your manager's request to another source who will be able to help them and be cooperative at the same time. Say later. If you don't want to say no just yet, you haven't quite gotten up to that confidence, use the phrase later. It's a great get out of jail free card to buy you a little bit more time till you make your decision whether you can or cannot help your boss. Here's a few examples that you can use. I haven't got my diary to hand. Is it okay if I can just check my schedule and get back to you on that? I'm just in the middle of preparing this meeting, however, can I take a rain check and get back to you on that task you've given me? Nice suggestion, let me see if I can get back to you. Let me check with the team and I'll ping you a quick message. So, there you have it. Those are the techniques that I use when it comes to saying no to my manager or to my boss. I hope you got some value from this video today. If you have, then please follow me on TikTok. I post loads of tips, tricks and advice when it comes to communication, leadership and charisma. But if you can leave a comment down below to see how you got on with these tips and what you'd like to see more of.